purposeful as possible for everyone. So Graft Talent is sold now, and it's been an interesting journey, especially with coronavirus hitting us as it has. By the way, if anyone hear me for whatever reason, just let me know. But basically, my company helps founders, SMEs and scale-ups with tech talent. So I basically provide coders, developers, project managers, business analysts, most roles within digital. And really, I mean, Julia was saying before, I consider myself quite fortunate because I had a really good, strong network. And I think for anyone in a business, that's the key thing. You really have to collaborate at every single opportunity. You know, seek out these opportunities and, you know, don't be shy to put your hand up and get involved, because I think once you've committed to saying yes, you can't say no, then you do it. So a lot of people would feel anxious and nervous.
I know we had this conversation before, but in case people freeze, so it looks like she's frozen. She's a bit upsetting. So she's probably going to come back. This happened at the last event. Clara, you're also quite familiar with that feeling,
yes,
aren't
you? I can understand the terror that she has right now, and I know
she's about it. So yeah, hopefully it's not.
So, Melanie, is that you back? Can I see you back or not?
No, that Katie's here now. So maybe Katie can speak, and then we'll return to Melanie.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Oh, there she is back.
Okay. Bye, everybody, for now.
Sorry, Katie.
So Melanie,
it just chucks me out every now and again. It seems to do it about every 10 minutes, so I'll try and go really fast. So yeah, so I set up Graft with voluntary redundancy money from Leeds Beckett, but within Leeds Beckett I spent a lot of time working with SMEs, scale-ups, graduates setting up businesses. So I was already quite lucky because I knew about the LEP, the economic city development teams, you know, governmental or quasi-governmental sort of agencies that are there to help, and there is a ton of support. So myself personally, I had a venture grant to kind of set me off. It wasn't a big grant, but it helped with some of the you know, the hardware requirements, the PCs, laptops, and some of the licenses I needed for things like my CRM. And it's always, but once you've done it once, I think once you've learned how to kind of almost write for help, it does actually become a little easier. I think you kind of, you know, can ask those really sort of open questions, you know, about what your chances of success are for gaining this grant, and you can pretty much get a good idea about what the outcome of that's going to be. So I started off with that venture grant and accelerator, which was, I mean, amazing for me. I know this is Barclays Eagle Labs, obviously have a similar thing. That wasn't in Leeds at the time. We got Barclays Eagle Labs after, but I went into NatWest Accelerator, which gave me a full year of support and business support, being sort of paired up to a coach. It was rent-free for a year. So it really did give me like an amazing opportunity to kind of, you know, almost like proof of get going without a lot of the costs which normally inhibit. I don't know about other women founders, but I really do deliberate over risk. I am a little risk averse, it has to be said, and it takes me a long time to make a decision. And I do sort of, you know, I annoy myself for that, because I think I over, you know, think about risk and really did this and stuff. So I did take a risk because I left a well-paid job and I jumped into being, you know, a startup business with, you know, nothing to catch me. There was, you know, there's no silver spoon. There's no, you know, I've never been funded. I've never sought funding. It's kind of a bootstrap business that I've built up from nothing really. But really as well on the collaboration point, you know, I'm a tiny business in Leeds, absolutely minuscule. And yet I collaborated with Tech Up Women in my first year of business as an industry partner. So also it's worth thinking, sometimes these things seem so big that you're like, oh, I can't get involved. Who am I? You go through all of this. And the thing, hand up and just say, I want to do this. I'm passionate about this. I want to get involved. You know, what happened next there with Tech Up Women as a prime example was an industry partner where we retrained 100 women from diverse backgrounds, BAME backgrounds, you know, lower income families. And we trained 100 women with non-tech backgrounds, degrees into technology. And so I had 4 residentials across different universities across the country. I mean, honestly, I'm so pleased. I just do it. Just ask the question, get involved. And I can remember like looking at the branding on the University of Durham's website, and there's Graft, and thinking, oh my God, you know, this is ridiculous. This was against some major big players, people that like they've got hundreds of people. And at that point I had one, me. But I got involved, and it was one of the best things that I ever did, because again, it's that networks, that collaboration, it's getting involved. You know, I also sit on the steering group of Leeds Digital for the same reason, that passion for the industry and the passion to make, you know, show that our regions in, you know, individually, wherever we are in the country or indeed the world, that we're making those kind of differences to our you know, regions, and really, you know, whether it be job opportunities or collaboration or whatever the case may be. So I think one thing certainly I've took away from, you know, doing that crazy thing and setting up a business in the first place is your network is everything, literally, because there's always going to be somebody that will help you. And I'm so lucky because I'm not going to be in every room where every decision's being made. I know if I do with someone, and I have, you know, and I've got really good relationships with people, they say my name, they say my company's name. It opens up opportunities for me that I've found by myself. So I think it's about caring and giving back and being a, you know, being a good sort of business. And that every deal isn't always about money. To look at things with a really wide open viewpoint, and you know, there are other things. I mean, you know, the complete pro bono work, but I was prepared to do it. I was happy to do it because I was a mentor to a lot of those ladies. I helped them get jobs into the tech industry that they would maybe have never thought possible. And just passionate about that, you know, that's why I set Graft up. We've got to find this talent that exists, might not be the usual typical places. Also as well, I think our region need to make sure that people have got good quality jobs, you know, jobs that they feel proud to have. And if you're the first person from your family, for example, to go to, that's a really big deal. You know, it's a big deal to get those sort of, you know, brilliant jobs in technology and having the salaries that we know exist, but it's paying forward all the time. You can't just sit in your little bubble, you know, you've got to pay forward all the time. So I think that for me is a big thing about running a business is, yes, you know, you have money to survive, but if you don't care about it, if you're not passionate about it, it'll soon start to feel like work. And, you know, in a weird way, you don't want it to feel like work. You want it to feel like it's something you just naturally really do. How am I doing for time, Chi-Chi?
I think you're good. I think you're good. You've got a couple more minutes. If we're going to be strict on schedule, Claire-Marie is probably there listening to us.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. You've got another good 5 minutes.
Yeah, you've got
no problem. And
Okay.
the sound's fine. We can hear you well. So
okay, that's brilliant. So I would say, you know, just about access to funding. You know, one of the key things I'd say for tech businesses is please make sure that you do apply for your R&D tax credits. This may seem really commonplace. I would expect a lot of people would, but it's amazing how many businesses I've worked with who haven't actually thought that what they're doing is unique and they've just solved a problem, or, you know, they've not thought about it in that way. But I think the R&D tax credits can be very, very generous. It's just you've got to document everything. So if you're not au fait with R&D tax credits, get au fait with them really, really quickly because, you know, they are generous. I think you're pleasantly surprised. So I think with the coronavirus as well, my business did definitely hit it. You know, it was quite quick, quite sharp. It kind of went from, it was bubbling along really, really nicely. I'd hired a couple of people. Things were starting to look really good and secure. And then coronavirus has come in and just sort of, you know, flattened it off. But it's the signs are coming back are really, really strong, and I'm recruiting, and it's predominantly tech clients. So I'm lucky because, you know, the tech sector hasn't massively buckled under coronavirus in a way that, say, maybe some other sectors would. Refocuses and repurposes you about what that mission is. What problems are you trying to solve for your clients? What solutions are you there to bring? And I've had to pivot, I've had to think differently, but I'm going to use this time as a time of creating new strategies and being energetic about what the future might hold, and almost like not trying to dwell on what was, but see this as an opportunity to, I can create this business in a different way if I want to. And when you are a startup, we have that luxury, we're tiny, we can pivot. So I've took every opportunity to do that. And actually I'm excited about the future, but I don't want to be that person who pretends that nothing's caused me tears. There's been tears, it's been very upsetting at points. You know, I've had to make some really harsh decisions, some really difficult decisions. But I just think you kind of dwell on it because you wouldn't survive. It will pull you under, and you've just got to keep on going. And the brilliant thing is, you know, there's situations like this where we get to collaborate, we get to talk, we get to air out our problems and just be real. And I think sometimes business can put this facade on of everything's perfect. Now's not the time for that narrative. A bit of authenticity, a bit of realism. It's not all shiny. Stuff goes wrong, you know, but you have to be able to reach out to your network and get that support. You know, the amount that I've spoken to over this forum, on the phone, we've laughed, we've cried, we've said, oh my God, what are we going to do when we survive this? But, you know, when you can talk to somebody else and somebody's always there in your corner, does make a big, big difference. So I think businesses should just be more realistic and say, this has been a challenge. I mean, even if your business is fine, it's a challenge being at home 24/7 with your family, your children not being at school. You know, just normal life is hard. I've got grey hair. I've got strange, like, frozen else because I've got the house to do with my hair. I mean, it's just crazy. And I'm actually really bored of Joe Wicks. I love him, but Joe, I can't do exercises.
Oh dear, excellent.
That was excellent.
So how many people have you got in the house then now, Melanie?
I'm all right, you know, I've only got one daughter, she's 14, and I've got a dog called Daisy who's a Lhasa Apso, so she's lazy and more like a cat, so she doesn't really give me any jip. I've got the husband's pack. He's the hardest work.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, I know what it's like because I have 3 teenage boys and a husband. God. So whatever I did was really, really bad. And I mean, I'm used to working from home 2 or 3 days a week, but not when there's 4 other people in the house. That's a bit of a...
Teenage boys, they're hungry.
Oh, they eat so much.
Must eat you out of house and home. I think you need a grant to feed them.
Yeah, they just eat everything and at all different times of the day and night, you know. Yeah. You can't guarantee what was ever in the fridge earlier will be there the next time you look. Absolutely not. So Melanie, before we move on to Katie, we do have a question here. So is that House just said, really interested in hearing about your observations in the tech industry hiring demands. Did you see quite volatile fluctuations since the start of lockdown? So you did mention that a bit, but do you want to say a few more words around that? Yeah, I mean, basically, reality, the truth. So one day I had 35 jobs on the board, and within 72 hours, they went to 0. So that was, in 72 hours, the shock was unbelievable. I'm supposed to go white-haired overnight.
bit by bit, over the course of these 2 months, it's slowly coming back, but it is coming back. But there's no magic portion to this. You know, a lot of my clients, if whatever plans they had to put on hold. They had to revise their own strategies, and a lot of them are still doing that. I do a lot in the graduate space and early careers, and a lot of clients have just thought, listen, they're not the most important, which is a real shame. And I think the graduates are being really affected by this. And most of my time at this point in time is coaching the graduates from 2020 about how they're going to survive and navigate themselves through this. And there's some real anguish. I mean, you know, I know it's slightly a first world problem, you know. We're all quite lucky. We've all got roofs over our heads. We can all eat. We've all got family, you know. Most of us are generally quite happy people. But imagine being a graduate and you've worked for 3 or 4 years, and then you're going into this very depressed recession, and you really don't know what your future's going to, what it's going to hold. So I think the tech industry, like anyone else, is kind of revising entry career. But as well, actually, and I mean, my business, I don't do contractors as such, but the contractors have definitely been affected. Been a lot of contractors turned off immediately. Most of the other sort of like permanent hires in tech, it's pretty much the same. People are not going to lose the tech talent, coronavirus or no coronavirus, because it's so hard to find in the first place. You're not going to lose your most valuable asset.
Really interesting. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, interesting observation. Yeah. So, I mean, some of the key messages I heard there when you were speaking, Melanie, I heard you talking about networks and collaboration. I think I heard you say your network is everything. And again, we see that here in Female Tech Founder. You know, it is about connecting and building community. And even earlier, was it last week, Chi-Chi, you spoke at the Women Leading in Business group, and that's a network of business women. So again, you know, everyone in Female Tech Founder is really welcome to hook into that. I also heard you say, you know, every deal is not always about money, and that's it's about building relationships, building reputation, building capability maybe. And also you talked about paying it forward. And again, that actually connects into your network, doesn't it? You know, paying stuff forward. I'm sure a lot of people are really interested in finding out a bit more about R&D tax credits, and certainly some of my clients in the manufacturing space, they're definitely recommended to look at that as a real way of growing their business or step changing bits of their business. And again, I heard you say about like you taking this time to think, what problem are you trying to solve? And that's really good business management. That's good strategic thinking that I think all of us need to circle around regularly with whatever business or organization you're in. I see a question here from Natalie. Hi Natalie, good to see you on the call. What advice do you give to entrants to tech market? I retrain women into tech. Any top tips at the moment?
I think the more you can show that you take your learning really seriously, so I'd generally with sort of entrance into tech, just become really obsessed with things like Udemy or free Code Academy, find whatever courses you can, and using the time particularly to do as many modules as you can, because employers go up in their estimation when you can prove that you're kind of a, you know, an enhanced learner, someone that will seek out the opportunities to continually learn, because tech's all about, you know, continually changes. There's always another language, there's always another framework, there's always another style of working. Get a GitHub link so you can populate that as much as you can with projects, things done, because then it'll show your development experience you have so far. But I think a lot of entrants into tech really struggle with when do they know when good is good enough. And I think what you have to really leverage there is not the fact you're not going to market saying that you are, you know, a tried and tested coder or developer, but you're going to market with a lot of as much enthusiasm and evidence that you can muster that enthusiasm is there. So a lot of things like joining various different meetups, you know, like there'll be JavaScript ones, there'll be Node.js, there'll be React, there'll be Python, C#, whatever, you know, there'll be specialized sort of networking groups that, you know, back in pre-coronavirus might have met face to face, but also there'll be a lot of activity just generally as well. So you need to sort of be connecting there, because they could be potential employers of yours, but also more certainly you can meet other people that are going to do what we're talking about with building a community, you know, and whether we like it or not, or always kind of, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And that sounds so 1980s, apologies, but unfortunately it's a fact. And, you know, sometimes it's somebody sitting in one of those groups and, oh, you know, we're looking for a developer, and, you know, and then you can kind of, at least you've got a name that you can give, recommended that get in touch with you. And it's just being really, really forensic on LinkedIn, scouring, looking for opportunities, and try and be as un-British as you can possibly be. So ask for help. Channel your inner American, you know, you just got to cheerlead yourself. And when if you need something and you need someone's help, just ask for it. What's the worst they're going to say? No. And then you know, well, that's, if they say no, well, you just move on to the next, but you just need to start asking for help. I mean, I say to graduates all the time, get your LinkedIn profile spotless, you know, and start connecting with whatever you can. And everybody, like, oh God, I mean, I'm 47 now, so it's a long time ago, but I remember being the new girl, you know, and you can make loads of mistakes when you're not supposed to know what you're doing. So instead of worrying about it, just think you've got this point in time where you can ask really stupid questions and no one's really going to have a go at you because you're not expected to know. It's just using that as much as possible to advance as fast as you can, and find a good recruiter. Someone that can actually spend some time with you to, you know, go through your CV, go through your application and give you some proper help.
Great, that's really helpful. And then we have one more from Patricia, actually. So how can we get out of things? There's so much outside coding, and it's a penny pointers would be really welcome.
Let's have a look. How can we get out of thinking that tech jobs are only better? Well, you know, technology affects every sector. There's pure technical businesses and then there's non-technical business, and everyone recruits technical people, but it isn't all about coding. There's a whole myriad of jobs: business analyst, project manager, you know, product owner. Lots of people have they're not coders, they're not developers, they've not touched any technology, they haven't done a computer science degree. You know, it's an aptitude. And it's an aptitude, and how you can prove that really is just by doing those things, about showing that sort of real drive to want to get involved in these industries, you know, by the things you read, the talk, the, you know, the platforms you'll go on where people who technology tend to around. But yeah, I don't know what the short answer is, because still, if you say tech, everybody thinks of coders and developers, front end, back end, full stack. But the whole scrum team around those core people is made up of different individuals with different skills. And really, I think it's a lot about people's own attitude to think, you know, there's this thing that they say, people will only apply for a job if they know like 90% of the job. Well, don't worry about that. You know, you've just got to learn to be able to leverage your experience against a difficult. That's it. But, you know, people for many, many moons have been changing sectors. I changed sector. I went from recruiting to higher education. I mean, that's one hell of a swap. But, you know, you've just got to be able to leverage your experience so people don't think about you in a narrow way.
Good advice. Very good advice. And I think it's good. It's, you know, it's good advice for everyone, and particularly women. You know, what you're trying to demonstrate is potential.
Yeah.
And capability and attitude, and that's the stuff that the machines won't be able to replicate. You know, that's the differentiator.
So, I mean, Claire Marie, that's something that I feel very passionate about, is who is writing these algorithms for these jobs. And I think if we rely on the robots to make decisions, they're going to be pretty flawed decisions. So you should never remove the human aspect of recruiting and finding talent. It's important that you get to speak to people. And you certainly, you know, if the people in control of these decisions are hiring people like them, they're not going to have the diversity in the teams to be able to build the products for people that are actually going to use them. We can't just assume that everybody who uses a certain tech product or platform is from one singular group of people. I mean, that's just never going to happen. So you've got to be broad. And I think for women particularly, you know, I've admitted I'm very risk averse. I'll admit that I would probably just look at a job spec and think, oh God, I can't do that job. But just do it. You know, it's getting back to that thing of what's the worst they're going to say? No. If you can, and you know what, I always believe that if people dare even use old-fashioned things like picking up a telephone and finding the person who's, you know, to that vacancy, as long as they don't get stuck here or, you know, some gatekeeper, you know, you can create opportunities just by saying, look, I'm really curious about this. Curiosity is a fabulous thing. LinkedIn ranked as one of the top 3 things that companies look for. So therefore, you're already ticking box 1. You're curious, you're asking questions. So just a case of, you know, just put your hand, like, we'll just dare to take a risk. And I think after coronavirus, let's just dare a little, you know, because we know what the world's like when it grinds to a halt. We've seen it, we're living it. It's not great. So what's going to stop us after this? Just grab every opportunity you can.
You must be a great person to have on your team when when people are out looking for jobs. I can imagine you're very motivational, Melanie. Just do it. And you made me think about you made me think about and I've mentioned it before in Female Tech Founder, you know, feel the fear and do it anyway. And it's in a very old book. It's about 30 years old by Susan Jeffers. And actually, you don't even need to read the book. You know, you just need the title. And it's like, you know, if you've got that little feeling in your stomach, that's when you need to step forward and step into the fear. And something exciting's about to happen. So feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, because so many people hold themselves back, just assume a whole load of stuff about themselves, the skills. Well, it's just an assumption. There's nothing to say that's the actual case. And I mean, honestly, the difference between when I recruit women into tech roles, especially not, and I'll start talking to them and going through the CV and getting them to explain things at great detail, because you can tell I like to talk. And then they'll say things that are really quite inspirational, but they'll just gloss over it really fast. Say, oh, but when I brought in a deal that was worth X amount, or, you know, I managed this person under these particularly difficult circumstances, but they just say it like it's a matter of fact. You know, they don't enable themselves any bragging rights about it. I'm like, right, stop. We're going to retell this story. And that's almost, people are nervous. You just have to view it like a story, just saying about what your experience is. Like, if you start to think of it in an interview phase, or you've got something to worry about, it's gonna throw you off your game. So just get your full-on storytelling license on.
Definitely. And that, I mean, you know, I do a lot of coaching, and quite a lot of it is career coaching, or helping people find out what they want to do next. And I completely agree with you. It's about, you know, you look back at all your experience. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to make anything up, but you just need to tell your story so that it all joins up and takes you in the direction that you want to go to. And I would really advise people, you know, find a coach that works for you, whether that's a mentor or a coach that you're pro bono, or a career coach that you actually pay for, because they're on your side and they'll help you shape that story and get you where you need to go. Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much, Melanie. Thank you.